Now we're live. Okay. I wanted to do a short video on this topic, and that is the whole blade steel queers in the knife community has gotten out of hand. What do I mean by that? So let me tell you how I feel about steel. It's better or worse depending on a mix of shit in it. Some of it's worth paying money for, some of it isn't. But if you're buying a factory produced steel, like a numbered steel, like 1095 or 5160 or fucking S30V or BD1 or Carpenter 115 or whatever the fuck it is. Doesn't matter. That shit typically is not worth paying a whole bunch of money for. Like Damascus, you could argue the labor and the art of it or whatever. The new Wonder Steels, like at a certain point, we needed a better steel. Okay. Now we are at the point where like you are making the tool prohibitively expensive, making it out of smaller and smaller pieces of meteorite. I don't need that. Most people don't need that. You're going to put knife companies out of business appeasing to the 1% of you that jerk off over your knives. While the rest of us here in the real world, 420 works. I'm not saying that's what I want my blades to be made out of, but what I'm saying is the knife blade on a Leatherman, if they are going to do anything, what I would ask them to do is upgrade the steel on the entire tool, what it's made out of in its entirety, to 154 cm with an S30V blade. Okay? Don't go crazy. Don't go nuts. Okay? But S30V is getting pretty cheap. 154 cm is getting pretty cheap. And like there are some logical places where you could get better steel in a Leatherman. But the people that I'm hearing ask for things from Leatherman are asking them to make like a $4,000 Leatherman. If Leatherman listens to them on their production line, they're going to go out of business. That's just my opinion. Like their tools are overpriced. Okay? This Skeletool I bought for 90 bucks and it comes with a 154 cm blade and it was $90. That's overpriced. And it's not just that like that steel is overpriced. That's overpriced for what it is. For what this is, this should be a $50 tool. Okay? If you want to make the blade out of Wonder Steel, then maybe it could be $90. But 154 cm is not Wonder Steel anymore to most people. To me, 154 cm is the steel that you should be making everything out of that is stainless on this pocket knife. And hear me out on that. 154 cm is pretty stainless, it's pretty cheap, and it's made in America. And it's a good blade steel, and it's a known name. That's why I like it. It's a steel that you can go just buy. And I'm not saying that like everyone should just have the same steel or whatever. Like do what you want to do. But on some of these things like Leatherman in particular, they aren't going to make their knife out of M400. They just aren't. They are selling a few more of these than you would ever expect. And it's a massive operation and to make the knife blade on it the new Wonder Steel every month, no, like that's not ever going to happen. When Leatherman makes a steel change, it's a big change. And this whole thing is ridiculous on its face anyway. All the knives that I like rust. I like carbon steel blades. So, like, all of this seems ridiculous to me. Like, if I would want anything, give me a 154 cm Skeletool with like a D2 blade, or maybe like a fucking 1095 blade. I'd rather have 1095 than 154 cm. People are like, what? But it's not stainless. Okay, the reason I want the tool stainless is so it doesn't rust. And like to an extent, that's why the Leatherman having a stainless knife, I'm willing to pay a little extra to get the 154 cm blade on this because it's going to be a thing I use every day and whatever. And like, that makes sense to me. And I think that Leatherman should have a custom shop where you can pay whatever the fuck you want. But they should always have a production line that is in the $40 to $100 range. And it should be good. What I mean by that is like the Leatherman rebar is $80 new, roughly $40 used. Nothing fancy about it, but if I had to buy one tool to keep in my pocket, that's probably about it. Maybe I. The thing that I don't like about Leatherman is that they really shouldn't put knives on their shit at all. If you look at how I and other people use their shit, it is a knife accessory. It goes with a knife. Everyone I've ever known that had a Leatherman had a pocket knife too. Stop putting blades on your shit and make it cheaper. Okay, put more tools and less knives. Could you imagine, imagine a Leatherman rebar that has a true rescue blade in it instead of the sheep's foot serrated blade? Something a little bit more rescuey than that. But I guess even just that would be enough. Leave that one alone. But you take out this plain edge one completely and you replace it with a really badass pair of scissors or a diamond file or I don't know, a fucking thing that you could attach sockets to. You could put 100 different things where this blade is. And in reality, how many of us ever use the straight edge blade on a fucking Leatherman? How many of us use the fucking serrated edge? That's rare. I use the serrated edge more than the flat edge because I'm carrying other tools that are my straight edge. I don't carry a serrated edge, so if I need one, I might pull out the Leatherman. This is why a tool like the Leatherman Crunch, that makes sense. Crunch doesn't have a regular blade. It has a few tools and a serrated blade and a cool set of pliers. I need to get a Crunch. It's one of those that I always wanted, but I never had. And I think they have discontinued that a number of times and ended up bringing it back out of demand from the market. There's several older Leathermans that get brought back from time to time. I think that's a cool way for them to be. Like, I really like Leatherman as a company, and I understand why they do what they do with their steels. Because from a working man's perspective, 154 cm is a really good steel, and it's cheap. Okay, which means more profit for their company. And from that perspective, I think the Skeletool that I bought is pretty bitchin' for a multi-tool. Like if I could get that Blade S30V, I would. And like I think that's kind of where a lot of the knife community is that They haven't bought anything that wasn't at least S30V and fucking however, right? Then they go buy a Leatherman and they can't even buy it in a steel that they are familiar with sometimes. And this is where, like, you're just idiots. Why are you idiots? Because all knives cut, and if you spend bazillions of dollars on the steel, you're not going to get the artistry. I'd rather have a steel that cost $5 or was free and spend, the money for the master to work it than have fucking Wonder Bar fucking steel worked over by Jimmy Two Times or whoever. Well, I'm going to call this off here. I think that's enough. There's 11 minutes of this. See you guys later.